Hello, it's MarkBoehmig, Michael Saunders and Company. Today is March the 22nd, 2024, and we're about 1 week in from the announcement that NAR has agreed to settle the lawsuit with the feds about improper practices on the MLS listings. So today we're going to cover 5 top key points that I think are very important for buyers and sellers. The first thing is we're going to clear up the misinformation out there from what we're seeing in the news media and get directly to the point of what's actually happening. Second thing we're going to talk about is what are the new rules. Next thing we're going to say is how will this affect buyers and sellers? Who's going to benefit the most from this? And what does buying and selling look like in the future? So if that's of interest, stick around. I have all the details. Hello, it's MarkBoehmig, Michael Saunders and Company. In this channel, Living in Lakewood Ranch, we cover all the areas around Lakewood Ranch, from Bradenton down to Sarasota and from Siesta Key up to Anna Maria Island. So this is a very important topic, and it's going to affect a lot of people, and it's going to affect them in a lot of different ways. But what I want to do first is I want to take you in and show you exactly what the new rules say and what it is that we're going to be dealing with moving forward. So I went in and I looked up the NAR rules under the frequently asked questions so that I could bring it in and show you what is important in this particular decision. Now, just to remind you, the federal judge has not signed off on this yet, so it's not official, but it seems to me that both parties have agreed, and typically when that happens, then the final decision is usually signed off on, which is projected to be sometime in July. So when I went to the website and pulled off the frequently asked questions from NAR, this is what exactly it talks about. It says compensation offers moved off of the MLS. So previous to this, from the real estate agent side on the MLS, you could see what the seller was offering for compensation. Now, I think the real issue here was that NAR said that, well, you could be steering your clients if someone was only offering 2% or somebody was only offering 2.5%, and then someone else was offering 3% on the buy side for the agents, that agents might have a tendency to steer in those directions. Now, according to the Code of Ethics through NAR, you're not supposed to do that, but I can't say that it's never happened before. I'm sure that there's some unscrupulous agents that have partaken in those practices, but that is being done away with. So no longer is the cooperating agent going to see what is being offered by the seller, if anything at all. The seller will not be obligated to make any offers on the MLS. The second thing is that NAR has been advocating this for a while, but now all MLS participants are going to be required to have a buyer broker representation form signed off by the buyer. And what that buyer representation form says is, hey, I'm going to be working with this agent. I've hired this agent, and I understand that their compensation is X. It could be a flat rate fee. It could be a percentage of the sale. There's no telling what the agents are going to ask for. But typically, in the old system, the agents were paid somewhere around 2 to 3% for bringing a qualified buyer and executing a contract for the sale of a home. So from now on, there will be buyer broker agreements that have to be signed. Now, right now in the United States, there's 17 states that actually have that already incorporated. Florida was not one of them, but they will become one of them, and so will all the other states in the United States, because that's what this ruling says, is that all buyers will have a buyer representation form if they elect to use a buyer's agent when shopping for properties and making offers. The other thing it says is that you can make offers of compensation, just not on the MLS. So if I read into this correctly, and I think that I have, is that if a company has a website, or if I have my own website and I'm representing a seller, I can state on the website what the compensation is that the seller is offering to a cooperating agent that brings a buyer to the property. So it just says that you can't put it on MLS. It doesn't say you can't put it somewhere else. And that is what's going to happen, in my opinion. In the future, there'll be people and agencies and companies, and there'll probably be other models that come about that says, well, we're going to offer this, or we're going to offer zero. That is also a possibility. But I don't really think that that's going to happen, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. So in a summation here, it tells you that while the sellers can still offer compensation to buyers, it will just not be expressed in the MLS. And I think that the reason that is because all of the agents go into the MLS, and that's where all of the material and all the information is accumulated so that it is distributed throughout all the MLS participants so that you could see what the rates were. But that no longer will be the case. So what should listing brokers advise their clients about the prohibition of offers of compensation on the MLS? Well, they have to tell the sellers that we can no longer offer compensation on the MLS, but we can offer it on other websites. But the other thing is that they can still offer a concession on the MLS. So let's just say that the seller says, well, we'll pay for the closing costs, things like that. That can be stated on MLS, the compensation, but not the commission. So now I want to bring in the president of NAR and let you hear what he had to say just a couple of days ago on a news release that they provided.
Now let's talk about the rules, and there's two in particular. The first is that we will be changing the rule that will prohibit the offer of cooperating compensation on the MLS. Please hear me clearly. You will still be able to offer compensation to a buyer broker. It just cannot be conveyed on the MLS. If there's one thing I know about members, they will figure out how to efficiently communicate the information to see if there will be any cooperating compensation. The second rule is that if you are a Realtor MLS participant, you will need to make sure you have a written agreement when you are representing a buyer. This is something that the National Association has talked about for years, and it is good practice. Now it will become a rule. As far as I'm concerned, anytime we have the opportunity to have additional conversations and explain our value and worth to the consumer, that will be a good thing for all of us.
So I thought that was very interesting. He was direct and to the point. You can't offer a compensation on the MLS anymore, and all brokers that are going to have buyers will have to have a buyer-broker representation form. I actually know a broker owner in an agency in Atlanta, and I thought he had some very good points to make. So let's take a look at this.
Yeah, and Karen, buyers are hopeful that now that they know that they can negotiate that commission, that this will make it easier for them to get in a home and make it more affordable. But one broker I spoke with told me that he doesn't think it'll make much of an impact.
The ability to negotiate has been a part of our industry for years, and that is not going away.
And for decades, CEO of Atlanta Fine Homes, David Boehmig, has been at the helm of one of Metro Atlanta's largest real estate companies.
Georgia has had the ability to work on both sides of the transaction for over 30 years.
Now the rest of the country could see what is standard here in Georgia if a judge approves a settlement agreement between the National Association of Realtors and plaintiffs. The deal would end the practice of sellers paying both their broker and the buyer's broker, a cost that is included in the home price and passed on to the buyer. Again, in Georgia, the ability to negotiate was already the case. And with years of experience, Boehmig believes not much will change here in Georgia.
The demand for homes, even in this market as we speak here in the middle of March, is very strong. And so I don't think these changes, when they start to take effect in July, are going to have a material effect on pricing at all.
Yeah, and that broker also telling me that one thing that we will see here in Georgia is just more transparency on that MLS listing. It'll say which portion of that price is actually going towards those commissions. Here in Forsyth, I'm Candace McCowan for Channel 2 Action News.
And then on one of the other popular news channels, they had Ryan Serhant interviewed. And let's take a listen to what
Our next guest is here to weigh in on the recent blockbuster legal settlement by the National Association of Realtors. If approved by a federal court, that deal would eliminate the industry standard 6% sales commission and put money back in the pockets of home sellers.
So one little correction here I want to point out. It does not eliminate the 6%. What it eliminates is the ability to put the compensation for the buyer on the MLS. So that's a little bit misleading there, but I wanted to point that out.
Joining us right now is real estate broker Ryan Serhant. He is the CEO of Serhant. And Ryan, let's just talk about that. I am so confused by everything I've read around this, what this means, how things are coming. I guess you've probably spent a lot more time trying to analyze it. What do you think happened here?
It can be very confusing. The lawsuit alleged that the National Association of Realtors, real estate brokerages, and local MLSs conspired to obligate a seller to pay a buyer's agent's commission.
That's it in a nutshell. That's what this whole lawsuit was about.
And what the settlement does is it really acknowledges that the traditional brokerage model has to change. And I think we all agree that there should be a free market conversation around compensation. And so what will happen starting this summer, nothing changes for right now around the country, but what will happen starting this summer is that buyers and buyers agents, if they elect to use one, and sellers agents, should they elect to use one, because you're not obligated to use a real estate agent in the United States, and you're not obligated to pay 6%, 10%, or 1%. Right? Those fees are what the market has commanded for decades.
It's kind of standard, and it's standard because people don't buy homes every day. So by the time you figure out what's happening, you get to the other side of this. Look, I think there are times when I've absolutely needed a broker, other times where I have not.
Sure.
And it's not easy to figure out or to negotiate on this. If everybody thinks that this is the way it should be done, why did it take a lawsuit to get us there?
Oh, I am all for market transparency. And what frustrates me the most, just kind of to what you're saying right now, is that the old guard in this business has spent so much time, so much money, on lawsuits just like this, defending where they've been instead of trying to build to where we're going. I think what happens now is new business models. I think there's new opportunity.
What do those models look like? What happens?
I think there's going to be greater versatility in how you work with your agents. And
so I think Ryan was probably correct there when he said it'll probably bring new market models to the industry, and I'm sure that it will. We're always changing in the real estate market. It just happens to be that this is a pretty big shift in how business is going to be done, because there will be strictly buyer's agents and there'll be listing agents, and hopefully those two will be able to come to an agreement as far as how things are proceeding in the future. Now, another thing I wanted to tell you is that I have uploaded not only the FAQ section of the NAR settlement, but I have also uploaded it onto my website. And let me show you where you can take a look at this. If you go to my website, MarketSoldFL or MarketSoldFlorida.com, and go to the blog section, you'll see that I have uploaded the NAR settlement agreement and also the frequently asked questions and put it into a flipbook style. So you can actually look through these pages and see what the quick synopsis is. Or if you want to get the detailed information on what the lawsuit says, there is a copy of it there as well. So how is this going to affect buyers and sellers? Well, I don't think that the sellers are going to be impacted so much. Let's just take, for example, if you were a seller and you were selling your house for $500,000 and you had previously paid 6% commission, and now let's just say that the agent that you hire charges 3% or 2%. It doesn't really matter, whatever their fee is, but for easy numbers, let's say 3%. Do you think that the sellers are going to reduce their price by 3% to put it on the market? Probably not. They're just going to pocket the difference, which is what this is all designed to do. But on the buy side, that means that the buyer is going to have to come up with some type of proceeds if they have hired an agent to represent them and to help them acquire a property. So I find this most unfortunate for first-time home buyers, because they're the ones who can least afford to pay extra money out of their pocket, and it is not something that they can put into a mortgage. At least at this time, the mortgage does not allow for compensation to be put into the mortgage, only for the purchase price of the house. So it's going to be a little bit more difficult for first-time home buyers and also for VA people, because they're not allowed to put that in any type of a mortgage. They're not allowed to pay the agent or anything for a VA buyer. So there'll probably be some changes for the VA and for regular finance people. So until this is signed off on, which they're predicting is going to be in July, nothing has changed so far. Everything will be as it is now. But in July, you have to understand that if you're a buyer coming to any property in the United States, the agent is going to ask for a buyer-broker agreement to be signed off on. The agents are going to have to be able to articulate their value to the buyers so that the buyers feel comfortable and confident in what they're paying for and making a wise decision by hiring an agent. So I hope you got good information from this and that you understand what the real issues are here and not what the hype is from the media, so that you have a good, clear understanding of how real estate is going to work moving forward. Mark Boehmig, Michael Saunders and Company.